welcome back to episode 2. So, I hoped you liked the first introduction. So, I have already asked lots and lots of questions about many things. About people, about topics, and some questions are just so bizarre. And some of the answers are also very bizarre. What I really like to do is, it depends on what I'm doing. If I'm working or if I listen to something and I'm just curious about the subject, specifically with podcasts. You know, if there's like a subject to do with aliens or UAP or religion, or I like to ask questions. I like to ask questions about the one who's being interviewed, to ask, are they being truthful? And, you know, certain subjects that we don't know the answers to, the mysteries. And some of the answers are just so interesting. So I feel like we can go through many questions that I've asked and I still need to ask, has been on my list. And we can watch certain clips in podcasts and do a live reading to see, are they being truthful? You know, does this really exist? Are they being misinformed? That could be a really cool way to discover answers. One of the questions that keeps popping up in my mind has to do with what's going on between Israel and Iran. So something that I should mention is, when you do a reading and you ask a question about what's going to happen, if it's something that's ongoing, then there are ways of it changing. So it doesn't necessarily mean that it's always fixed. And I'll give a very good example. If you went to a tarot reader and you said, like, you know, if I continue the lifestyle that I'm living, I'm not working out, I drink a lot of alcohol, you know, I don't take care of myself, the spirit is gonna say, you're gonna get sick, or something could happen. And then what you do with this information is you take it and then you change things in your life. So you go get a gym membership, you drink less, you eat better. So now you just changed the course. So you see, like, that's how tarot works. It's not always fixed, but it can give you data. Then it's up to you how you use that data. And I think that's something very important. So, you know, a lot of people, they get afraid when they ask a question or they see certain cards and they're like, oh my goodness, like, it's the end and whatnot. No, it can always be changed. And then that's why when you develop a relationship with a spirit that is willing to help you, and you use this as the point of contact basically. Like, this is kind of like sending an email, and then the cards, when you open them, you're opening the email and you're reading the content. So this is data, and you can use this data in your life. But then at the end, it's up to you to apply, you know. Spirits can help make things at ease for you, but you still have to put the work, you know. They're not our servants, but there are things that they can do that we cannot do, and there are things that we can do that they cannot do, like lifting up this physically, or pouring a glass of orange juice. Like, these are just the examples. And it took me like a lot of time and I guess some personal gnosis to figure this out. You know, other ways you can use tarot is you can use it in magic. This is a very nice card. It looks a little burnt because I did use it in some spells, but it still stayed good. So when you use tarot cards, they can be like a sympathetic link to your petition, to represent what you want and the outcome and whatnot. You know, you can do it for good or for ill, but we can talk more about that in another post. So let's ask a question about Israel and Iran, just to have an idea. How is it gonna end? And I'll do a 3-card spread. How is it gonna end for both sides? So you spread it out, and then you just pick. So they say that at this point, the spirit knows the question you're about to ask, and it's guiding you to flip. So it's great. This is not good. Okay. Interesting. So what I like to do, because I'm lazy, I like to go to ChatGPT and just say, you know, how is it gonna end? How is it going to end? I already have an idea based on what just got flipped. 8 of Cups, it's disappointment. B is Chariot, and C, Knight of Wands. Yeah, as I expected. So this card is saying there's walking away and emotional detachment. So leaving behind what no longer feels emotionally fulfilling. But despite the emotional departure, there's a sense of taking control, like moving forward with a purpose. There's a willpower, direction. So someone will be driven to succeed. So even if it means leaving behind something meaningful. And that ending brings fast movement. So it will end with a momentum, possibly rushing to a new direction or even opportunity. So then, depending on who is watching this video, some people will say, oh, that's definitely Israel. Some people will say, oh, that's definitely Iran. So generally, like, what I like to do is I like to ask a deeper question. Sometimes it could be two more questions. It would say something like, well, is that Israel? You know, is it like Iran? So you get the idea. Like you can keep going. And what I recommend is you should write down the notes. You know, to see how what kind of answers were given. You can even write down like how you felt. Sometimes you can have a feeling from the cards, because the cards is saying a story. So you could keep going. You could say, you know, and then after you ask those two questions, you could say something like, will US be involved? And then if the answer is yes, so, you know, will, as an example, Iran be defeated? You know, is the regime going to change? I think that's a good one. After you're done, usually you say thank you, and then you shuffle again. You can do 3 times. Shuffling, it just depends, but I always shuffle. Always shuffle. You can do it like this too. Let's ask one more question. Let's ask, will there be a regime change in Iran? So now we're going to do yes/no question. Disappointment. This is a yes. 1, 2. Oh, that's interesting. So there's a disappointment, but then we have 2 aces, which is yes. So this tells me that there might be a regime change, which, you know, is inevitable. What I would do is I would probably ask this question again, just to make sure that it's still going on track. But that's a very interesting answer. So this is ways you can use tarot. But I really recommend that building a relationship with the spirit is very, very important. I've asked many different spirits before questions, and I didn't really receive like the best of answers. So for me, Astaroth has been a wonderful guide and mentor, and I really appreciate her teaching me. Will the US be involved in this war? One, two. That's the first yes. So we count to 13 to hit one of these aces, then we stop. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12. Interesting. What is that? Okay, we'll just ask GPT. Will the US be involved? Ace of swords, Ace of Pentacles, again, this is out of laziness. So the first one is that the US, they have a desire to get involved. There's an interest and motivation and a spark to intervene or participate. And this is through a strategic drive. But the second card indicates a pause. There's an inactivity or waiting, which means that they're observing the situation and they're just acting behind the scenes for now. So probably there's an internal deliberation, there's like a timing, they're probably waiting for something. But this last one is a very good, strong card, which means that it suggests a financial or material interest. So they're likely to engage through economic or strategic resources, which is not a surprise. Obviously, I don't want to get into stock tips, but probably this means that if they do, and probably they will, all the stocks that benefit from going to war are going to explode on an upward trend. So that's interesting. It's not a surprise, to be honest, but it's nice to see that Astaroth can see that. good to shuffle. Usually I use both hands, but in this instance, I'm not. If you're interested in me going on a deeper dive in just this subject, let me know in the comments and I will set up a time to do that for you. Okay? Hope you enjoyed this. Let me know if you have any feedback. Thank you.